that pertain to the other three that we talked about, which was reality, Jesus, and truth. And with that, today we're going to be talking about identity, and we're going to talk about society. With identity, how do we define ourselves as a person? And even with that too, how does Christianity define me as a person? And then what does that mean with living in this society that we live in? And today we have a special guest, and that special guest, we're going to put on a video where the special guest got to go to Israel and not just talk to you guys today, but he's living out what he believes, more so, not what he has any hold of, but what God has grabbed him a hold of and has turned his heart inside out and is just moved by the gospel, which is the good news of Jesus. So let's take a look at that video from Israel, and then our special guest, Pastor Angelo, will come on stage. Sure.
Pastor Angelo here in the Holy Land with Muhammad. Yeah. Muhammad could give me a special deal. What's the deal, Muhammad?
The close the open one.
And they cost what?
White people $20, black people $10.
That's right. Yeah. That's only in the Holy Land.
Yeah. Because we love you.
We love you too.
God bless you and good confirmation.
All right.
So, even in the marketplace, it's a marketplace kind of faith, and he's just talking to people and loving people. We'll give it up to Pastor
How are you guys doing?
Good. Pretty good.
I'm still in a different time zone, but that's okay. That's all right. We'll move this up. That actually worked the last time I failed when I did that. Hey, it's good to be here. Good to thank you, Mr. Bill, for allowing me to come over and share what I believe is one of the most important things that we as believers need to get a hold of. And we're going to be talking about identity and society, why that's important. And you know that most of Jesus' ministry, when you go through the scripture, was in the marketplace, not in a building, out amongst people. And we just got back from Israel, and one of the things you notice really quickly if you go to Israel is obviously the sights and sounds of where Jesus lived and walked. And a lot of the Jewish people know Jesus more than we would ever know of him, know where he lived, and all these kind of things. They don't accept him as divine, as God, as the Messiah, but they can tell you where he lived, they can tell you everything about him. It's fascinating, but at the same time, there's a veil over their eyes. And so this guy, Muhammad, we came out one of the restaurants. I'm going to intertwine him in what we're talking about today, because he's indicative of what you're going to run into in the marketplace. And my goal wasn't to put him on Front Street, to challenge him, to make him look stupid. My goal was just to hear him. And I had a time to talk with him about what he believed in. And I'm going to share that with you. And it sounds similar, whether you're in Israel or Bakersfield or Los Angeles. It's the same thing that you and I are going to be faced with challenges. Challenges not only to our faith, but challenges to who Christ really is. And if we aren't prepared for that, we'll just get rolled over. Because if you see society right now, they really don't care too much about the traditional church, let alone what we believe. And so how are we to act out in a society that's adversarial towards us, or towards you, or just towards God in general? From a personal standpoint, my son, 4 or 5 years ago, came to me and said, "Dad, I think I'm an atheist." And when you're faced with those challenges, you gotta go, what? How did that happen? Because we have a decision to make as far as following Christ. Do we want to live faithfully to what he has for us, or do we want to say, you know what, I'd rather go and get along with the people, my friends, because it's hard if I drop the Christian stuff. So I'm going to challenge you today that what we're going to talk about today is not about an event, is not about kind of a theory. It is about what I think Christ challenges each one of us to. And simply that he is our identity, and we are the reason why he lives in this world. And our purpose, our primary purpose, is not Facebook friends. Our primary purpose is not social media likes, dislikes. Our primary purpose is not school and all this other stuff. All those things are important and they fit in. Our primary purpose is to glorify God from Genesis to Revelation. And that sounds kind of crazy because we got so many things we got to do. I'm sitting there listening to your calendar up here and my head is spinning. All the things that are coming up that you guys are involved in, it's like, yay! How do you concentrate on all that? Hey, if you get the priorities right, these calendar events are opportunities for you to, one, glorify God, and two, for you to love others. Glorify God and to love others. So bear with me as I go through this, and Mr. Bill, I have these right here. You want to pass these out? They can follow along with me. So we're going to rock and roll. I don't have a lot of time. I'd love to come back again if I'm doing okay. You guys invite me back. If not, I'll meet you on the side of the church and we can talk about it. But I just want to be real clear that our identity in society is tied directly to not knowing about Christ, but who he is. And I said I'm going to weave in the story with Muhammad because he reminds me of a lot of what I come into contact with in society. As you notice today, I'm wearing my shirt here, which I wore in Israel, and which was really interesting. When I was in Turkey, we stopped in Turkey. I got some real interesting comment. And the shirt says, paleontologists will never discover transgender bones. And I've had people, transgenders, come up to me and say, well, I disagree with your shirt. And I'll ask them, what do you disagree with? And they'll say, I don't know. They don't know. The fact is, the way God has established, whether we like it or not, he's established certain things, male and female. Whether we like it or not, whether how we feel about it or not, this is what he established. And paleontologists are those people who deal with dinosaur bones. And they're the ones that go back and look at fossils from thousands of years ago. And they can tell you what species it was. There are only two, male or female. So my idea in the marketplace, I wear this in the marketplace, is to encourage questions. Not to put people down, but to encourage people. People go, well, what does that mean? Or what does that say? And I'll even tell you, because Mohammed and I talked about some things that we're dealing with today, which I didn't expect that we were going to be talking about in Israel. The same things we're dealing in Bakersfield. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that, because I don't have, like I said, a lot of time, and we'll be out here by midnight, right? And you're going to supply food. Is that correct? All right, let's just go ahead and start it off. Matthew 5, we're going to take a look at that. There are two words that pop out in there, salt and light. Salt and light. And Jesus' sermon, he kind of brings these out, he kind of touches on them, but he really doesn't go into a lot of detail about salt and light, but he just says, you will be salt and light. And you can kind of go, well, yeah, because salt has some good principles and qualities about it, but also salt can be very dangerous if you have a lot of it, and light the same way. Has some great principles about it, but if I took a beam of light and shined it right in your eyeball, you would go blind. So light, too, has some wonderful properties about it, but it's very dangerous if you misuse it. And with most things, fire, it can warm you, it can also burn you. Food. Did you realize that you can eat food and be nourished? You could also eat food and be gluttonous. So it's not unusual for God to use things to demonstrate our worthiness in it, but if we overuse them, we can get in trouble. So let's take a look at this real quick and we can see what's going on. He says, you are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its taste, how shall its saltness be restored? It no longer is good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. He says, now you are the light of the world. A city set on the hill cannot be hidden. nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may glorify your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And that's Matthew 5:13-16. I want you to write the first thing, salt, and then put decay. Salt and decay. One of the reasons why Jesus used the word salt, because the reality is that we are in a world of decay. If you don't know that, the makeup industry would go out of business. Just think about it. Every day you get up in the morning, you put on makeup, ladies do, and the guys comb their hair and do whatever, right? You're trying to, you take a shower because you're trying to delay that decay. If you look the way you did when you got up in the morning and you came here, people would recognize some of you. There is a decay going on in us. We are getting older, whether we like it or not. And if you sat next to someone who's passing from this life to the next, you will see that decay. And if you think we're not decaying, then I have some other issues I'd like to talk to you about. Jesus said the word salt because he wanted to get the principle across that you and I are sent in a world that is decaying. And that salt principle is a reason why he says he wants us to be salt. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But it's fascinating. When I first heard that 40 years ago, I was saying, that's cute. Why would he use salt? That's just kind of the thing that you do. I guess, it's no significant. It sounds cool. Salt, right? No, salt is essential to life and essential to earth. I didn't know that growing up in school. What was essential when I was in school was girls. Salt is one of the fundamental elements you've got to have in order to live. But again, the overuse of it could get you in a lot of trouble. Notice also what he says in the first part of that verse. Once salt loses its saltness, its tasteness, it's no longer any good. The only good it is to be trampled under feet. You become roadworthy. That's all you're good for. So there's a warning in his words to his disciples. I have made you salt. If you don't follow that, you can become worthless. And then there is no help at that point. They probably go, well, how do you prevent that? Well, one of the things you do is that you realize that you're in Christ and you study to show yourself approved. You keep practicing. You keep volunteering. You keep loving. You keep growing. You keep being equipped. Because if you shift into the world's idea, then you will begin to lose your soul. And we're going to take a look at this. The other thing he said was light. Light. You are salt and you are light. Light, then put next to light, darkness. So we are in a world not only that is decaying, we are in a world of darkness. If you don't think you know that, listen to Muhammad's answer to me. He is in darkness. Because what he thinks is, and what he's saying is, I'm going to treat you differently because of the color of your skin. That is darkness. And we talked a little bit about that after we got off the video. I asked could I videotape him. He said, yeah, videotape me. And I was like, wow. Because normally you don't get that. People will say things to you and they don't want it videotaped. I said, can I videotape you? I'm going to put this on social media. He goes, yeah. He was proud of it. Why? Because there's a darkness there. So I talked with him about that. And I'll tell you some of his thoughts when we were getting more into this, because it'd be a 20-minute video if I showed you everything I talked about. But these are the two things that Jesus wanted his disciples to know right up in front. The world is decaying, and it's in darkness. This is why salt and light are so important. They're just not cute little terms. We are salt and light. And I think about that and I go, man, how much of my life is salt and light? We're either salt and light, and you can underline this, or we are sugar and shade. Salt and light, or sugar and shade. Sugar and shade. Sugar, by the way, makes things tasty, makes things addictive, fills you up, makes you feel full. Eat a lot of sugar, you feel full. Sort of kind of gives you energy, maybe kind of if you're a kid. Shade kind of hides things. Hides things. No light. Then I hide my Christianity when I'm in certain places. Oh, on Sunday I may raise my hand and I may pray, but when I'm in the restaurant, just kind of hide it. And there's a warning about that. He said, no one has a light and puts it under a bushel. When I first read that 40 years ago, I was thinking, put it on a bushel? Why would you light something and put it on a bushel? You don't really want people to see that light. Where are lights placed? In dark places. And so these two things go back. I really want you to do your own research and find out about why did Jesus use these two things, which ties directly to our identity. Because if we don't understand the purpose of why we're here, if we think why we're here is him late, or we think why we're here is this or that, or him or her, or that or this, or up and down, then we're going to miss the point. We are here because Jesus said, Paul said that for me to live is who? Christ. And to die is gain. Here's the great apostle, gave us 13 of the 26 books. He said, I'm just here to live for Christ. You got to go, well, that can't be it. I have to go to school. He's not saying we get rid of all those things, but he's saying we got to understand we only have those things as an opportunity to share the gospel of Christ. As you study scripture, as I mentioned before, you're going to notice that from Genesis to Revelation, it simply says, God simply says, he doesn't talk about feed the hungry. He doesn't talk about social justice and all this other stuff that's out there. All those things are important. What he says is, make my name known from Genesis to Revelation. And I don't know about you, a lot of what I see in the world now is making our own names known. Who are we? What influence do we have? Christ says, no, it's the other way around. Make my name known, because it's only by his name that true transformation takes place. Everything else is simply a transaction. Salt and light, or sugar and shade. So let's take a look at this. We'll break it down a little bit. Why? It said we are called to be salt and light, not sugar and shade. It says, why salt? Number one, salt's preservative example. One of the qualities of salt is it preserves. It preserves. Why would God want a decaying world to be preserved? Why would he want that? Wouldn't he just want the decaying world just to decay, go away, and we get a new one? Because this is the whole point of bringing the gospel, that we as believers can bring we can slow this down a little bit to bring in the hope of the gospel to people. It's almost like if you see a dam. A dam is put there to stop the flow of water so that it can redirect water. It slows it up so that it can be redirected, so other people can be saved. So he's saying a salt has a principle to slow up the decay long enough for you to begin to present the gospel. If the decay was so fast, no one would listen. I talked to Muhammad about this. I said, what do you think about the world? Muhammad, oh, good, world's good, world's good. It's good, world, good. I said, what do you think about sin? No sin. I told you, darkness. if you and I believe what Jesus says, there's an urgency in our lives now. It's not just, I'll get to it when I get back. Well, I'll get to it whenever. There's an urgency because there's a decay going on to talk with people, your friends, your neighbors, your family members, about the gospel. Because you know, if you really believe decay is happening, I got to get there now. I can't wait till tomorrow. Think about when there's an urgency, you think about the people that fight fires, and I know a number of them, and they are special individuals. When a building is burning, do you see, and they show a fire station, do you see them sitting around going, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do you think we should do, guys? I don't know. What, should we get up and go? We just hang out here. Well, what do you think? No, when you see that bell rings, what do you see them do? They get their uniform, and it's like you see that look at everybody, they're like, yeah! Can you imagine if we had that type of attitude when it came to getting up every day to look for those opportunities to share the gospel in a world that is decaying? Think about it. It would change the way you order your life. Because if you're like me, most of my Christianity when I was growing up, it was about how can it fit in my life, in my time schedule. It was only the last number of years that it started reversing for me, and I started seeing the urgency of Christ's words. And the identity that I have here. Not simply being a pastor, it's not just being a person who's married and has kids. It's not all those things, although those things are there, they're important, but they're pale in comparison to Christ's identity. Speaking of identity, I have 7 forms of identification. I got passports, I got everything, I got all these things, and none of them talk about my spiritual worth. None of them. You can look at all your IDs, they will never mention your spiritual worth because that's not where your real identity is. It's in Christ, and we're going to see that towards the end of this because I will do both in society. And I'm going to talk a little bit about identity in society, but we're going to finish up on why is that important. So it's a preserving example. Number 2, it's a healing example. Salt is a healing. It helps to heal. If you sprain your ankle, there's a thing called Epsom salt. You guys may be familiar with that. You put your, the nurses here understand what the healing principles of salt is. It heals. I was just recently, as I said, let me see if I have it. I hope I have it. I hope it didn't open up because it'll be disgusting. We were in the Salt Sea, and this is a actual Salt Sea. I got it from the Salt Sea. Now, if you guys have ever been to Israel, the Salt Sea is the saltiest sea on earth. There's 33% salt here. If you drank this, you'd have some serious issues. You probably would be, anyway. The fact is, salt in this concentrate could put a serious hurt on you. At the same time, as big as I am, I can float in the Salt Sea. You just get in the water, you sit down, that's a weird phrase, you sit on the water and you just float. Whee! It was awesome. There are pictures on Facebook, you can see me floating. Salt is a valuable principle, but I said at the beginning, too much of this could hurt you. And as I was floating on the Salt Sea, I was remembering what Jesus said. You are the salt. It's a healing principle. As a matter of fact, when you're in the Salt Sea, they tell you to stay in there only 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, those healing principles switch to hurting principles. Because salt sucks the moisture out of your body. And if you stay in that Salt Sea long enough, you become a pro. And if you have high blood pressure in the Salt Sea, what do you think is going to happen to your blood pressure? You see, too much of a good thing can take you out. So salt has a preserving principle to it. And I put lines there for you guys to write some examples that you discovered with salt, even from the Bible. And lastly, for salt, it has a flavorful principle to it. It causes you to have thirst. Do you guys realize that when you go to McDonald's, how many of you go to McDonald's? Raise hands, raise hands. Raise hands, all you go to. And you get French fries. How many of you have ever gotten French fries without salt on it? Come on, say, admit it. No. What? That's disgusting. Well, most normal people, no. Salt creates taste. And you don't realize it, but the business people learned this a long time ago. If they put potatoes and fry them and put salt on them, remember those Lay's potato chips? What do you think's on those Lay's potato chips? Salt. And you know what the thing is? You can't what? Eat just one. It creates taste. So wait a minute, now you're getting the picture. God wants us to be salt in the earth because he wants us to create in them a desire for something, a taste, a thirst. And you'll see how this ties in when we get to the end. Because it's really, really cool how he did this. He says, I want you to be salt because I want them to come to you. When you close with these verses, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Salt is just an amazing principle. At my age, doctors tell me not to eat a lot of salt. As a matter of fact, they give me a little chart. This is how much salt you should eat in a day. And they do it in a little milligram or whatever it is thing. I don't understand what it means. So I asked my wife, who's a retired nurse, what does this mean? She goes, you shouldn't eat a lot of salt. Because I'm not going to measure how much salt I eat. Now, I have a scale at home that goes, I don't measure anything that I eat. I just eat. How many of you love eating? Yeah. Can you imagine you have to measure everything? There are some Weight Watching things that you do, measure anything. I will never be on any of those. It won't happen. Well, anyway, so it's flavorful. It causes thirst. And you'll see how cool that is. Jesus was saying, I put you in, you're in the world, but you're not of it, but I want you to cause thirst. And thirst meaning for people to begin to ask questions. Then light. As I mentioned here, light. Why light? God wants us to be a living example, not a dead example, a living example of light. When we see light, our eyes naturally turn towards light. If you've ever traveled at night and you're in darkness and you see a light in the distance, your eyes will pick that light up. And you will want to move towards that light emotionally, spiritually, physically. Because that light is going to guide you out of the darkness. And in Israel, in places like that, when we were traveling, there were places where it was dark and you saw a light in the distance. You want to get to that light. If you're going down the highway and it's dark on both sides and you see a light, you want to get to that light because there's a sense of hope there. God says, I want you to be light in the world because the world's in darkness. And the best lit candles are placed in the darkest places. Again, that's another principle that I didn't catch for a long, long time. I just thought it was a cute example. Salt of the earth. Light? By the way, they're still struggling with the whole principle of light. Physicists are still struggling with how actually light is. Is it a stream? Or is it a line? Or what is it? We know that it is. They don't quite know how to quantify light. And, they have this thing, I know the Disney movies, they had light years. Have you ever heard the term light years? How fast the amount of light travels in a year. And was it Buzz Lightyear? Mm-hmm. To infinity and what? Beyond. Beyond. What is it? How far is that away from here? Is that where Wasco is? No, I don't know. Light is a principle that we are governed by. Because we're in darkness, God's desire in our heart is for us to come out of darkness. And the way we come out of darkness is we see the light. We see the light. One of the things we did in Israel was we had an opportunity to go in Hezekiah's tunnel. Hezekiah was a king of Israel. He heard the Syrians going to come and sack them, and their water source was outside of the wall. So what he did, he ordered his people, he said, I need you to reroute the water system. There's one problem with it. It's going to be through solid rock. So for 1,700 feet underground, they rerouted a water system, started on this end, and they carved, I don't know how they did it, no one knows, all the way to the middle, and there's a tunnel there called Hezekiah's Tunnel that still has the water in it. From biblical times, you can walk in it today. We just walked in it. It's up to about my knee, which will be your waist. And it's real short. You know, short people can, I had to, but anyway, you get in this thing and you realize the first thing is absolute darkness in there. You were in there, weren't you? First time I went, absolute darkness. Tore my head up, elbows, knees, everything, because you can't see anything. It's like, where's the bam, bam, bam? And I know Jacob, your brother, was behind me this time, and he was behind me saying things like this. Dog! That's right. Jacob, I'm right here. Watch out! Dog! Watch out! Dog! Even with the light on my head, I had one of those little miner's lights this time, still hitting my head. It's the coolest thing to go to, but it reminds you that the world is in decay and it's in darkness. We're told to be salt and to be light, to be a living example. Jacob, in that tunnel, to me, was a living example. He was shouting it out, Doug! And that's what we need to do with the gospel. Hey, there is another way. I know you're struggling, but there's darkness out there. Let me show you. Another example is a faithful example. We need to be faithful with the word, with the truth. We need to be faithful. It's not Mr. Bill's job to get you motivated in the things of God. That's impossible. And if he tries to do that, it's going to be the death of him. It's not his job. It's God's reputation that you're motivated by the things of God, to be salt and light. Bill's job is to guide you. Much like when you go, if you've seen your parents, or maybe some of you drive now, and you go down to Niagara Car Wash, and as you turn in to go in the car wash, they got the guy inside there telling you where to put your wheels, right? You know, yeah, he's going like this. I had a friend of mine do that a couple of years ago, and I knew who he was as I turned the thing, and I'm going, and he said, this way, this way, this way, this way. He's just messing with me. I'm like, really? I hate you. You know how to drive. But there's a time in your life where you need guidance to get your wheels in the right place. That's what Mr. Bill's doing, getting your wheels in the right place. Does he drive your car? No. Does he put gas in it? No. Does he motivate you? No. That's not his job. His job is to provide guidance. That you're already motivated by God. Because you realize that you want to be salt and light in this world, because the world is decaying and in darkness, and the only way they're going to know about the gospel is if you and I take it to them. And that's the cool thing why God used you and I. That's the reason why he uses you and I. And last one, he wants us to be a shining example. Why light? A shining example. That doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but we have to be visible. I spend a lot of time in the marketplace, not because I like being around people. I actually don't. I'm actually a shy person. You probably don't think that, but I am. I'd rather be by myself. If I wasn't married, I'd be a monk somewhere. Kind of. The fact is, it's difficult to be in an environment where people are coming at you if you don't understand your principle in life and why you're here. My principle in life is to look for opportunity to share the gospel in creative ways. Going back to Muhammad, didn't know who he was. He came up to me, offered me a deal of a lifetime because of my skin color. Bingo! That's an opportunity to share the gospel with a Muslim. So I asked him, I said, what do you believe in? Oh, I go to the mosque. I go to the mosque. I go to the mosque. I go, you said that 3 times. I get it. What do you do in the mosque? I pray 5 minutes. I pray 5 minutes. I go, okay, cool. He comes out. I go, what does that mean to you? Good night! And I put my hand on his chest. And I said, do you have a relationship with God? No, I go to the mosque. We talked for a little bit about that. Again, my goal isn't to put him on Front Street, put him down. My goal is to say, I want to be salt for the time that we have, and I want to shine some light, which is deeper than the color of my skin. And he stood out there and talked with me, and he told me, he said, I have 5 kids. I'm trying to keep a living, and it's hard in this country because there's so much going on. And he says, I just have to, and he said this, he said, it's a fight every day. Imagine living in Jerusalem, where even in today's world, when we read about the Jews were slaves, the Romans had them in slavery. Imagine what it was the first century Jews when they were living. They couldn't do the things that they wanted to do because the Romans had control over everything they did. Even their death penalty. Remember before, they could stone people and this kind of thing, but when Jesus came around, they couldn't even get rid. They had to go to the Romans and say, we don't want this guy around us. Can you get rid of him for us? I.e. the crucifixion. Because sometimes when you put too much salt in a wound, what happens? It burns. And it hurts. And in some ways, the church, over the years, have used way too much salt to try to force people into the kingdom. By guilting them and hurting them and stepping on them and calling them names and all kinds of things. And it's done the opposite effect. People have turned away from the church, away from the things of God. It's the same thing as you take a bright light and shine it in somebody's eye. They turn away from the light. And this is what's happening in our society. Salt is to create that taste. Light is to be that living example. And let's finish with this. I'm going to finish with this. Peter, First Peter, where is it at? Oh, there it is, right there. First Peter 3:15. 1 Peter 3:15. This is interesting because this is what Christ is telling us to do. And this is what apologetics is. Basically, to every man an answer. Well, why would they want to ask us any questions? Because it says, be ready to give a defense for people. Sanctify Christ in your heart. Matter of fact, it says it this way. It says, but sanctify Christ as Lord in our hearts, always being ready to make a defense or to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give an account with the hope that's in you, with gentleness and respect. How does that happen? Because when we're salt and light, people are going to go, what do you have? Tell me about why you're living that way. And that's what Muhammad did. He turned the question on me and said, what about you? What do you believe? It's almost like, ding, 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 ding. I didn't expect that. What about you? Talk to him about being a believer in Jesus Christ. God has put us on this world to be salt and light. This is where our time today is coming from, that conversation. Kind of knew what I was going to go to, but that helped me to bring it down to reality. Because I didn't want to come in with fancy words and throw things at you and sound smart and all this kind of stuff. I just wanted to tell you, here's a real life example of what you're probably dealing with, maybe a family member, whatever, that you've been talking to forever and they're not listening to you, and they turn around and then ask you a question. And what do we say? Go to the pastor? Talk to somebody who cares? It's our opportunity to share what that salt and light is. But sanctify Christ in your heart. That's where our identity is. I want to close with this. 1 Peter. Do you have a Bible? 1 Peter? I want to read this to you. I saw this the other day, and about 3 months ago, actually, and I want to read this to you. 1 Peter. It says this: to those who receive faith of the same kind as ours, by the righteousness of God, our Savior Jesus Christ, grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and Jesus our Lord. For his divine power has granted us everything pertaining to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who we call, by his own glory and excellence. And it is through these things granted to us by his precious and magnificent promises, so that by them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world on account of lust. He said, now for this very reason also applying, and here it goes, all diligence in your faith, supply morals, excellence in your moral excellence, knowledge, and in your knowledge, self-control, and in your self-control, perseverance, and in your perseverance, godliness, and in your godliness, brotherly kindness, and in your brotherly kindness, love. You look at the progression that Peter is talking about, and it's a great book to read, because he talks about if you do these things, you will increase in the principles of salt, but not negatively. You will increase in the principle of light, not negatively. If we don't, then we are simply sugar and shade. We then are agreement with the world that there is no hope. Just go along to get along. I have a chart down here at the end that I hope can illustrate it a little bit. Down at the bottom it says salt and light is about a relationship. Shade and sugar is about religion. Salt and light is about transformation. Shade and sugar is about a transaction. Salt and light is about communion. Shade and sugar is about consuming. Salt and light about selflessness. Sugar and shade about selfishness. Salt and light about being faithful. Sugar and shade about being faithful. And here's what it comes down to. We're either in Christ, which is our identity, or we're in crisis. Now, in Christ, you can have difficulties. As a matter of fact, the Bible says you will have trials and tribulations. But in Christ, you will never be in crisis. But being in crisis will never get you to Christ. So over 2,000 years ago, Jesus sat on the side of a hill and talked to people about some fundamental principles that I'm guessing they had no idea what he really meant in a deep sense. Because today we're still studying and figuring out the deepness of what he said. Because he's the creator here. He knows what there is. He understands that sin can cause decay. darkness. So I'm going to challenge you as we close here today. If you're like me, I have decay and darkness in my life. I would love to stand there before you guys and tell you, it's all gone. You're not sure of that? Ask my wife. She'll tell you what the decay and darkness is. Because I'm still looking to Christ in what I'm doing. I still, for years, come to the church and just sit there and go, yeah, keep talking. Yeah, sounds good. When is this over? I'm thinking of lunch. In this last 3 years of the pandemic, I've sat with so many families in hospitals all up and down this valley. I've been in more ICU rooms. And you gotta understand, I am not medical at all. I didn't know anything about a Band-Aid. I don't know anything. But somehow God used me to be in ICU rooms, all of them. I've been in all of them, to sit with family members, young people, older people, who have transitioned from this life to the life beyond. With a 40-year-old young lady in the heart hospital last year. I called at 2 o'clock in the morning. Family needs a chat. I don't know them, don't know her, don't know the situation. I get to the hospital. The husband's there. He's panicked. The mom's there. She's panicked. And I look through the ICU window, because there were narrow windows in there, looking there, and the whole team of people working on this young lady. She's like 30 years old, 29 years old. We got permission to go in there while they were working on her. We were in there close to 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You see something like that, it'll rattle in a cage. I asked Mom, are you sure you want to go in? Yes, I was. And I saw absolute dedication from doctors, nurses, technicians. They're trying to save this young lady's life. And to rotate it around and trying to save her life. Arms are flying in. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most difficult things. Our nurses and doctors, the people in the healthcare industry, we don't love them enough. What they do day in and day out. They did everything they could physically to save this young lady. And they didn't stop until it was called. As I told you, if you don't believe the world is in decay, stand next to somebody who's passing from this side to the next. You will see the decay. Then you'll see the darkness. And as we stood there, the reality of salt and light. Where are you from God's will? What he wants us to do. Urgency for you and I. You feel it? Do you sense it? I'm going to pray right now. And I don't know, Bill, if you have it. Don't pray right now. You guys can come up here if you like. You can sit right there. It doesn't matter. Bow your head. But if you have darkness in your life, I know I do. If you have decay in your life, I know I do. God wants us to turn to him. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of a solution of hope and help, so that we can be better served to reach out to people before they get to the emergency. So I'm going to pray. If you want to come up, you can. I don't know, Bill, how you want to do this? Want to come up, or we can sit right there, how you want to do it? Or Bill, do we have any prayer leadership? Bill, why don't you come on? And anybody else who have some leaders? Okay, if you guys want to come on up, guys in there, leaders, you can come up and stand over here. Just spend just a couple minutes. I know we're going over a little bit. They'll fire down here. This is important. So, we'll take a time as I pray. You can even put some music on. Just a couple minutes. Is that okay, Bill?
Yeah.
A couple minutes. If you want to get up out of your seats and come on up and pray, we can. I'll just pray during the time. And at the end of the song, about 2 minutes or so, then we will close it. So, again, if you want to get on up, you can stay there. It's up to you. But let's. Lord God, I thank you for the principles of salt and light. I thank you that you love us and that you care for us and that you desire for us to be motivated by you. So Lord, I pray here today, those sitting here, those in the world here today, Lord, that we would confess. We have decayed our lives in darkness, preventing us from being all that you want us to be. Lord, I just ask for just the opportunity to be here and to share with these guys and girls about what it means to follow after you. And I pray that you would reach on their hearts, these young people here today, and they would desire to get up and be motivated. As a matter of fact, young guys, if you can stand on up, you can stand on up. You guys can stand up. Yeah. Come on up and stand. I'm going to pray that, Lord, that you would reach in with all of us. Remind us of those principles. So, you ask us to sanctify through our hearts. What does that mean? What does that mean? Lord, the world has decayed and dying. Lord, us in darkness. Help us to be those servants. Lord, we thank you for the leaders here, Lord, those that you placed here in this room for your purpose. Lord, they strengthen them that they don't grow weary from doing what is good. Lord, as I listen to the calendar, oh my goodness, so many good things that are going on, that are coming. Lord, I pray for motivation beyond knowledge, a desire to look for those opportunities to pray and to present salt and light to the decaying and dark world. Lord, I pray for this guy, Muhammad, as we prayed in Israel. We pray that his eyes would be open, that he too would see that there is a God who loves him unconditionally, a God who loves him not because of anything he's done or can ever do, but only on the basis of his Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, and thank you for that divine appointment to meet with him. As we hug, Lord, and we talk about hope we see each other again, I hope we do. I hope that you've planted the seeds in his heart, that he's able to turn and find a genuine relationship, a relationship based in hope, not in fear, a relationship based in love, not in revenge, a relationship based in your Son, Jesus Christ. So we thank you for the worship today. Remind us who we need to look to and why we need to look to. So Lord, we thank you today. We thank you for what you're doing in this place. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. Everybody said, amen.